Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We'll find in who we are. There's so many.
Good morning, welcome to Aspire. I'm down here on the beach obviously this morning. I need some downtime, some alone time, like I'm sure many of you do. And as I was sitting here looking at the beach and feeling the beauty, I was thinking about our cruelty towards each other. Sometimes it's so immense, sometimes it breaks my heart, so to speak. And this morning on Aspire, I want to talk to you about one of the most important issues in life, and that is our cruelty that we levy towards each other. So please stay tuned for one of the most important messages I've ever offered on Aspire.
Seek, we find the answers. Life's a dance, and we're all dancers. Aspire. Just believe we can be.
I've spent a great deal of my time in my life wondering why there's so much cruelty and pain and suffering in the world. I watch people interact with other people and situations, and I ask the same questions I'm sure many of you out there ask yourself, and that is, how can we be so cruel to each other? The amazing thing about it to me is also the most religious people I know are often the most cruel that I've ever seen and that I've ever faced. The most cruel things that have ever been said to me have been said to me by people who were highly religious. And also, if you begin to look, you'll begin to sense and see that we have a great need always to be right. Being right is so very important to us. We spend a great deal of time worrying about what is right and what is wrong, who will think this of that and who will think that of this. It's a sad predicament we find ourselves in. We've totally lost ourselves in this life. We are much more concerned with what other people are thinking of us. We are much more concerned with being right than we are with finding the deep, esoteric, spiritual meaning behind life. It's a sad predicament humanity finds itself in. I'd like to share with you some insight on this because it's really quite important. We are not here to be right. A moment will come in your life somewhere where it will be very important for you no longer to seek what is right anymore. Many people still seek what is right. And you and I can think of many things that we would make right in the world. Maybe we would like to take away war. Maybe we would like to take away poverty. Maybe we would like to take away illness. And most people would not quarrel with you in saying, in taking those things away, we would make the world a better place. We would make it right, so to speak. But as long as we continue to seek to make things right only in the outer, we will never find rightness itself, because, ladies and gentlemen, in truth, there is no such thing as right, as there is no such thing as wrong. Things are just the way they are. And when we begin to understand the nature of all things, rather than trying to set things right, that's when we begin the spiritual path. If you look at the great master, all of them, starting with Socrates, to Jesus, to Buddha, to Lao Tzu, to Mohammed, all of the great spiritual masters such as Krishna, none of them ever tried to make the world right. If you want to look at Jesus as an individual, a Messiah, who tried to make the world right, he was a total failure. Because the world didn't change after he left or while he was alive. We still have wars and rumors of wars. We still have potential destruction and illness and death. It's going around us all the time. And yet we're very caught up in the idea of what is right and what is wrong and what should be and what shouldn't be. Maybe it's time to take a different point of view. Maybe the question isn't what is right and what is wrong and what should be and what shouldn't be, but why are things the way they are? And maybe the path is, who am I? I am here for some very specific reasons on this planet. What is my purpose and my inner direction? All these things that are right or wrong, that seem good or bad, are they really important compared to what our real mission, our real purpose is in this life experience? We are making a journey. And the journey is not a physical one. A lot of people think that the journey is some sort of physical thing that we go through, where we start off with a young body and we mature in that body. We go into adolescence and we go to middle age and then to old age and death, and they think that the whole process of life is this beginning from birth to death. I think not. I don't think the process has anything to do with any of those things. In fact, the more aware I become, the more silent I am, the more time I take for space and symmetry and meditation, the more I begin to see that it is not a quest of finding out what is right that is important. It is not the quest of trying to make the world what it should be. It's more a quest of finding ourselves as unconditional love. And when love becomes more important than what is right, that is when we begin the spiritual journey. That is when we begin to take the journey inward, not the journey outward into rightness, but the journey inward to God. Interesting thing about this journey, it's the space between our head to our heart. It's the longest journey, as I've said to you, you and I will ever take. It's also the most intimate and the most demanding journey we will ever take. Jesus tried to help us with this, as all masters did. I'm going to use Jesus this morning for a particular reason, because he was so adamant about this subject. All great and loving souls are adamant about one thing, and that is judge not. Constantly, Jesus is telling us, judge not. We find that particularly difficult. If a person is on the pathway to love, there is no possible way we can judge. Judgment is an activity only of the intellect, of the mind, of the ego, of the senses. And when you and I judge anything in life, we are judging from only two places. We are judging from our past, and we are judging from our hope of the future. We judge from our senses and our intellect from the past and the future. And there is no past, and there is no future. It is ungodly to talk about the past and the future, because God does not live in the past nor the future. God lives only in the now. When Jesus said to us, judge not, because we will be in danger of the judgment, he was saying, in essence, in modern day vernacular, if you continue to live out of your mind, you will never see things as they are. You will judge things and analyze things from the way they were or the way you hope them to be, and you will be in danger of the supreme judgment, and that is that you won't see things clearly. The great mistake that we make as a race, as individuals, is we are more concerned with the mote in our brother's eye and unconcerned at all about the beam in our own. We're very interested in setting other people right, but we're not as interested in creating a sense of peace and harmony within us. If you have started to contemplate this kind of activity, where you begin to see that right is wrong in some places and wrong becomes right in others, and are thoroughly confused with the whole matter, that's a good beginning. Now it's no matter a thought of who should be doing what, or what should be doing who, but now it begins to be, who am I? And love is very important in that. We begin to see love from an entirely different point of view. We begin to see it not as right, but as essential. Not as something that we should do, but as something that we are. Judge not. This is the most important step we make, because in judging not, we have no other alternative but to drop our minds, to drop our intellect, to drop our ego, and to do something that very few human beings ever take the courage or the power to do, and that is to touch their spirituality, to begin to be sensitive to their heart rather than to be reactionary towards our mind. Let me give you a couple of how-tos, some steps that you can take this week. First of all, no matter what is happening in your world, stop and see. Is my mind interpreting this based on the past or the hopes of the future or the conditioning of what I've been told is right and wrong, good and bad? And if so, just watch it. You will see that all of your judgments are based on the past. They're not living in the now. You're not seeing things as they are. You're only dealing things the way they seem to be. And you're dealing cards out to yourself. Because however you judge things, that's how it's going to be for you. So the second step is to stop, to pause, to ask yourself, is it more important that I set things straight, or is it more important that I see things the way they are? Jesus never tried to make things right. Buddha never tried to make things right. He created the opportunity for love. All masters create opportunity for understanding. For yourself, create the same opportunity. Don't create a world of rightness. Don't try to make other people what you think you should be, or what they should be, or what you've been told they should be, no matter how much you love them. Loving other people is letting them be where they are, to learn the lessons that are necessary for them without condemning them and berating them. It is the essential part of unconditional love. The most important achievement that you and I make in our lifetime is the ability to drop our minds, our intellect, our ego, and not to set the world straight, but to judge not according to appearances. We went back to the mailbox and I sifted through the mail that we get. We average sometimes between 80 and 100 letters a week, and always there is some question about judgment or some part of our spirituality. And I found 4 that I'd like to share with you from 4 different viewers. The first question is, in your teachings you have said, judge not. Jesus said, judge not. And yet I find it impossible not to judge. Where am I failing? Well, we are conditioned to judge. We have been told that that is one of the faculties that we should be using. I don't know if you are so much failing. That's a hard word and a harsh word to use. I would say you are following the conditioning that you have been told to do. In the world, we use our analytical mind. We use what I call our market mind. We go out into the marketplace in life and we judge and we look at things the way they are and seek to try to make them the best they can be for us. Well, I'm not going to argue that point. I personally don't feel that a person can be happy living like that all of their life. It may be good to do that in the marketplace, and maybe you should, I don't know. But if you take that same analytical mind, that same conditioned mind, and try to bring it into your spirituality, it will never work. If you bring your marketplace mentality into your spiritual insight, you will be looking at other people, you will be judging them, you will be analyzing them, you will be psychologically trying to evaluate them, and you will miss them. Our object in life is to understand the nature of all things, not to judge and criticize them. When the Master said to us that we are more consumed with other people's faults than our own, he was talking about a very natural process that takes place in us. It's easier to look at someone else than it is ourselves. When we look at ourselves, we have to have a mirror in front of us. Then we think we're looking at ourselves. But you see, spiritually, the mirror towards us is compassion, introspection, understanding. You're not failing. You're living up to your conditioning. If you wish to cease that, drop your mind. Watch when you're making judgments. And instead of going, oop, I shouldn't be doing that, just pass it off and let it go. And when another opportunity arises, learn to see things just as they are, not the way you've been taught they should be. You know when you're judging by your attitude. You'll start looking at people and conditions and saying, that's not right, they shouldn't do that, they shouldn't say that, that's not the way it should be. That's when we're judging. Please have a compassion and a tolerance. Replace your judgmental attitude with that compassionate one that says, it's okay for people to be where they are. I can see the need that they have to act that way. Maybe they're feeling tremendously self-destructive. And if so, there's nothing you and I can do about that. I hate to see people be self-destructive, but there's nothing I can do. I can't stop it. And my resentment or my hatred towards them even doing that shows a judgment. So we need to cease that, to understand, to bow to a person, to respect them so dearly that we will let them move through their life the way they need to move through it, even if that means that no matter how much we love them, we find that they are hurting themselves. That's the great courage of love. Let's look at question number 2. I don't understand why people are so cruel. I even find myself becoming cruel. The older I get, it seems the more cruel I become. What's happening to me? What is happening to you, my dear friend, is what happens to all of us when we live by our ego and our mind, when we live up to our conditioning. It's funny. We start building this holier-than-thou attitude. Religion backs this up. Religion segregates us. When you live and I live from our minds, when we live from our intellect and our thought, our reasoning and our senses, we're going to become very cruel because we lack the ability to change. We lack compassion. We lack love. We don't let people make mistakes. Religion segregates us. Religion says if you believe this way, you'll be better than the non-believer. So we create a religion that teaches us to segregate people rather than understand or unify people, to love all people. In this Western world, we are so intellectual, we are so egotistically bound, that we create anything that we can that will separate us from other people. We do it through money, we do it through politics, we do it through religion. Our cruelty comes whenever we are trying to divide ourselves from other people. Whenever we say, I would never do that, I could never be like that, I would never act like that, I would never talk like that, that's cruelty. Never underestimate your cruelty, your ignorance. I always laugh and say, never underestimate my own stupidity. It's always there. Rather than being offended by it or trying to hide it, seek to understand it. Where does it come from? It comes from the need to be superior. My need to think that somehow, in my own way, I am better than other people, which comes from a lack of security and understanding. We are all created in the image and in the likeness of God. None of us are better or lesser than anyone else. We all have the same opportunity to go to God and to go to life. So let's take that opportunity. Let's go to God. Let's go to life. Let's practice the inner path of compassion and love. Nothing's happening to you. It doesn't have to happen. You don't have to be cruel. Temper everything with patience and love. And please understand that all of us in this life, no matter how strange we may be or how crazy we act, we're doing the best we can. We're doing what we know to do. And sometimes that is ignorant, and sometimes that is painful. Sometimes it's highly loving, sometimes self-destructive. Ours is not to curse that person, but to understand them. Compassion. Third question. I've read many books on unconditional love and listened to many of your lectures on it. You seem to stress it greatly, and yet no matter what I seem to do, no matter how I seem to try, I can't become unconditionally loving. I still find many things in my life that I hate and that I repel. Please help me. When a person can get past love, as we know it emotionally and mentally, they'll get past hate too. When you say, I love you, you also create the opportunity for hate. When you say, I love this, you create a hatred for that. When you say, I like this, you create a dislike over here. When you say, I like high, you also say, I dislike low at the same time. When we say, I love you, what honestly we're saying is, I agree with you. I like the way you act. I like the way you think. It's a lot like me. Mwah. That's not love. That's just prejudice. That's just liking what we see because it looks like us. Drop your concepts of love. Practice unconditional love. That is totally different. That is accepting what we hate. Not necessarily agreeing with it, not necessarily wanting to go along with it, but seeing it's in its place. Do you realize that God loves all of us? That God loved Jesus Christ as much as He loved Adolf Hitler? That God loved Gautam Buddha as much as He loved Charles Manson? That the rain falls on the just and the unjust? That the sun shines on the just and the unjust? It doesn't really matter. God is unconditional. You and I are the same way. If we will stop judging other people according to what they do and how we agree with them, and begin to see that the whole purpose in life is to understand where we're coming from, where everybody is working from. Drop our beliefs, drop right and wrong, drop love and hate. The opportunity for God arises in us. The perfect opportunity for God. God does not arise in us because we say, I love this and I don't love that. God arises in us when we are open, when we are receptive, when we are unconditional in our own nature. And that is the most important movement we make towards life, to make the possibility for God. Last question, where do I begin? Somehow, I know what you are saying is true, but I don't know how to begin. What should be the first thing that I do? The first thing that you should do is to do no thing. Watch yourself. See where you are. The words that I speak, you know deep down inside they're ringing a bell. Just hearing the bell is enough. There's nothing left to do but to listen. Take more time to be silent. Don't be trying to do anything. Seek through all of your life to sit in the stillness and the silence of your being and be receptive to silence as you once were to noise, to hasty judgments, to analytical viewpoints, to philosophies. Respond to your heart, less to your head. There's nothing left to do but to live. Just sitting down here and feeling the essence of nature again has brought me back to the idea of the need for us to always remember that it is the soft and kind things that we do within ourselves that matter so much. We see people making speeches about the necessity for peace on earth and peace marches and all of that. It's so silly. The only real trek that needs to be made is the trek from the head to the heart. And that's one that no one can make except alone and by themselves. Our cruelty towards each other is a very sad thing, a sad commentary on our feelings about ourselves and our insight. This week, spend some time in compassion, in meditation, in kindness, and in forgiveness. This world depends upon us taking the time to make the spiritual journey within. We don't need any more religion. We don't need any more politicians. We don't need any more laws to make us peaceful. The peace comes from within our hearts. It's up to you and me to make that trek, that journey to our heart. God bless you.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we're finding who we are.
We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light.
We're finding who we are.
There's so many roads